Masechet Sanhedrin, Daf Tet Vav, Ha'arachin. The next item on the list is regarding Arachin. We learned the Mishnah quite a long time ago. So let's go back and look at the Mishnah inside. We just did Ha'ikdeshot Bishlosha, and now we say Ha'arachin Mitartilin Bishlosha. Movable items that one donates. When one is going to redeem it, you need 3 judges to evaluate how much it is worth. That's Tanakama. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Echad mehen kohen. Rabbi Yehuda agrees that it's 3 judges, but one of them has to be a kohen. Then the Mishnah teaches, V'akarkaot isha v'kohen v'adam kayoseh bahen. If someone donates land and then is going to redeem the land, then it's not enough to have 3. You need 9 judges plus an additional kohen, 10 altogether, in order to evaluate the land, and then you can pay that amount and get the land back. And for a human being is the same thing. If one donates the value of a person, then you need 10 people, one of them being a kohen, in order to assess how much that is. All right, so we're going to deal with this first phrase, arachina metaltelin. And the Gemara asks, "My arachina metaltelin, what does this mean?" It's actually quite a difficult phrase because the word arachin is a key word. It specifically refers to the beginning of Vayikra 27, where someone makes a vow be'ad kecha nefashot regarding a person, and he says, "Ki alai, my value is upon me," or that of someone else. I'm going to pay that person's value. If he uses the word airech, then it doesn't go by whether the person is strong or weak or whatever, but rather it's a fixed amount that depends only on their age and their gender. So if a person is between 20 and 60 years old and a male, that would be 50 shekel. So if I would say, ki alai, I would have to pay 50 shekel, and then it goes on and gives other ages and for men and for women. That's if he says ki alai. If he says my damai alai, I want to give my value, my monetary valuation, that's a different story. Then we take the person and see how much would he go for on the slave market, and he has to pay that value. But that's using different language. So aerech generally is a term reserved for this type of arachim, of the evaluation of a person. It refers only to people and not to movable items. So when you say arachina metaltelin, this seems to be a contradiction in terms. Yes, anyone can concentrate any item. You could take any fork and say, I consecrate this fork, I donate this fork. But then it would go by the market value of that fork. So that's what we want to know. What does arachin metaltelin mean? We're going to see 3 opinions. Here's the first. Amarav Gidel Amarav. Be'omed arech keli ze alai. Amarav Gidel Amarav ha'omed arech keli ze alai noten damav. Mai tama adam yodea she'en arech lekli. Ve'gamar ve'amar l'shum damim. Mishum hachi noten damav. So Rav Gidel says in the name of Rav, when a person says erech, he uses the wrong term. Really, he should just say the value of it, damim of klizeh. But he says the word erech, and what that we translate that into is the regular market value of it. And we know this because Rav says that if someone says erech kelize alai, he has to pay for the market value. Why? Because a person knows that there's no such thing as erech for a kli. Erech is only for a person. And then you pay the 50 shekel or 30 shekel, however much it is. But since he knows he's using the wrong term, in his mind, what he means to say is the market value, and therefore he pays the market value. In other words, sometimes people use the wrong term, and they knowingly use the wrong term. It's just a kind of habit. They're borrowing a term that really applies elsewhere, but they're using it in this context. But what they mean is simply the market value. Okay, now we ask, "Hi, arachin metaltelin, arachin shel metaltelin me ba'aleh." But would you call that arachin of metaltelin? And it's hard to translate. Would you call that arachin hametaltelin? Valuations that move? That's not the right term. You should call it valuations of things that are movable. That's what the Mishnah should say, shel inside in between there, if that's what it meant. And we answered, Taneh arachin shel metaltelin. Yes, change the Mishnah And really what it should say is arachin, valuations with regards to movable items, meaning if you say the word erech, that I'm going to give the value of this item, then what you mean is the market value. Simple enough. Second answer, Rav Chisda Amar Avimi, bematpis metaltelin la arachin. We're talking about someone who associates the object of his vow with a movable item, meaning that really he says, Irki alai, I'm giving my own evaluation, and that would translate into 50 shekel, but I don't have any cash, so I'm going to pay with forks. And so therefore I consecrate this number of forks, that would be the equivalent of 50 shekel, and that's what it's talking about. So that way, Rav Chisda, the benefit he has over Rav is, Rav says, no, erech, he's not using the term accurately. But Rav Chisda, in the name of Avimi, can say, he means, when he says arachin, it really means arachin, a person's value, but he's paying with movable items, and so that's what this is talking about. And then when you want to evaluate those movable items, you need 3 judges. We ask, Hai arachin mitaltelin shel arachin ba'ele, tane mitaltelin shel arachin. Same question. Would you call that valuations of that move? It should be metaltelin, movable objects of valuation, meaning you made a valuation, and now this is a movable items that I am using instead of the valuation. So that's what the Mishnah should say. Instead of arachin metaltelin, should say metaltelin shel arachin. And the answer is yes. Change the Mishnah. That is in fact what how we should read it. Metaltelin. If you have to make an evaluation of movable items that you consecrated instead, in order to pay for arachin, which is real arachin of the value, the official value of a person. Third answer, Rabbi Abu Amar, beomed irki alai. Rabbi Abu says it's talking about a regular case of arachin. I say my valuation, I am donating. In my case, since I'm between 20 and 60. And a male, that would be 50 shekel. Now I have to pay 50 shekel. I didn't consecrate movable items like in the previous one, but then the Kohen comes to collect it. Ba Kohen legabot bimenu metaltelin bishlosha karkaot ba'asara. When the Kohen comes, I don't have any cash, so the Kohen comes and says, look at all those forks over there. I'm going to take the forks. And if it's forks or any movable item, then we need 3 judges to evaluate how much they are. And if the Kohen comes and says, listen, I'm going to collect land, then you need 10. That would be in the continuation of the Mishnah that talked about karkaot. And so this is a little bit different from the previous one. And the second answer, it's when I say irki alai and I consecrate the forks. Over here, I say irki alai, I don't do anything else. The Kohen comes and he just takes the forks. So it's similar to the previous answer, and the point is, that's what it means, arachin ha-metaltelin. It is arachin, and they're being collected with movable items. Amar le-Rav Acha medifti le-Ravina, bishlam ala puke mehekdesh ba'inan shelosha, ela la'ayule lekdesh shelosha lamali. Rav Acha medifti asks Ravina regarding this last answer. I understand if I make something hekdesh, and now I'm going to redeem it, I need 3 judges, to evaluate how much it's worth, because this is something that's consecrated. I don't want to be stealing from something that's consecrated, and so I don't and pay too little. So I need 3 judges to say this is worth $100, and that way I'll pay $100. If I evaluate it myself, I might say it's only worth $80. That makes sense. I don't want to pay less than the item is worth, and then I'm taking something that's consecrated. But in this last case, the forks were never consecrated. I didn't consecrate the forks. The Kohen just came and took them. So in that case, I am raising them. I'm not taking them from Hekdesh, but rather giving them to Hekdesh. The Kohen is going to take them. So why do I need 3? I'm not redeeming them, right? I'm not taking away the consecration. I'm actually giving them. So why would I? In this case, I need 3. Ravina answers, Ravina says it just makes sense. What's the difference if I'm elevating it and making it consecrated, or I'm removing it from consecration and paying its value and taking the item? It's the same thing. What's the reason that you agree that you need three judges when you're taking something from consecration, because you might make a mistake and really it's worth 100, and mistakenly I think it's worth 80. I'm going to pay 80 and take something worth 100, so then I'm stealing from something consecrated. Okay, everybody agrees with that. Well, paying to the temple treasury would be the same thing. If I said Arki alai and I owe 50 shekel, and then the Kohen comes and takes these forks, and we say, yeah, it seems to be about 50 shekel, but really it's less. Maybe those forks are worth only 30 shekel, and now he took it, and I underpaid, so I'm still stealing from the Bet HaMikdash. Either way, I'm not paying enough to the Bet HaMikdash, and so therefore it does not make a difference whether I already consecrated it and now I'm redeeming it, or I didn't consecrate it yet and I'm giving this to pay for a vow. Either way, you would need three judges to evaluate it. Rabbi Yehuda Omer v'chule. So in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda says, yes, I agree, you need three judges, but one of them has to be a Kohen, which makes sense since we're talking about donating things and giving things to the Bet HaMikdash, so that one of the three judges should be a Kohen who will make sure that the interests of the Bet HaMikdash are being granted. So what's the source for that? Amar le Rav Papa l'Abaye Bishla Amar Rabbi Yehuda Hainu dichtiv Kohen. Rav Papa tells Abaye, I understand according to Rabbi Yehuda why the Torah uses the word HaKohen. Remember, we saw it used it 10 times in the three paragraphs. The first paragraph about arachin of human beings, second paragraph about animals and movable items, and the third paragraph about land. And so regarding movable items, actually about all of them, it says the word Kohen. And that's why you need one person to be a Kohen. So the Torah makes sense according to, I understand why the Torah says Kohen according to the Yehuda. El Rabbanan Kohen lamelahu kashya. But according to the Rabbanan, who'd say you just need three judges, then why does the Torah say that the Kohen will evaluate? It should just say the judge will evaluate, because the judge can be anyone. Why does the Torah pick the word HaKohen if nobody has to be a Kohen? And we leave that question standing. Now, if I donate land, then we need 10 judges, and everybody here agrees that one of them has to be a Kohen. What's the source? Amar Shemuel, Asara Kohanim ketuvin b'parasha. Chad legufeh, hana chave mi'ut achar mi'ut, ve'en mi'ut achar mi'ut, ela l'rabot, afilu tisha Yisrael, ve'echad Kohen. So Shemuel explains that it says the word Kohen 10 times in the parasha. We quoted this on the previous stuff, but actually here is the source. And so, why does it say Kohen 10 times? Well, one of them, I need it for itself to tell me that you need a Kohen to be there in order to make the evaluation. And the rest of them are mi'ut achar mi'ut. That's a limitation followed by a limitation. This is like a double negative. A negative times a negative is actually a positive. So the first Kohen means you need a Kohen. The next Kohen, why would you have to say Kohen again? Just say that guy. So that double mi'ut is actually an expansion to tell me anybody. And the rest of them also we understand as expansions. So the first one tells me I need a Kohen. All the rest of the 9 are considered mi'ut achar mi'ut, and they're all general, therefore, and you can have 9 Yisraelim and 1 Kohen. You can have more Kohanim, but you need at least 1 Kohen, and then the rest can be whoever you want. So that's how he's applying the mi'ut achar mi'ut, that the first one is davka, and then once you add another term, all the rest of them can be general. Matkif la Rav Huna bered Rav Natan ema chamisha Kohanim v'chamisha Yisraelim kashya. However, Rav Huna, the son of Rav Natan, says, wait, I don't think that mi'ut achar mi'ut should work like that. He thinks it should work really more like a negative that you're multiplying. When you're multiplying negatives, if you have 1 negative, it's negative. 2 of them, a negative times negative is a positive. 3 of them, an odd number, then it goes back to negative. Then 4 of them, it goes back to being positive. It keeps switching back and forth. And so Rav Huna is saying that that's how mi'ut achar mi'ut should work. The first one should tell me that it has to be a Kohen. The second one is mi'ut achar mi'ut, so that can be Yisrael. The third one then is a Kohen again. It's davka, because you already did the mi'ut achar mi'ut. So the third one has to be a Kohen. And therefore, every odd one is going to teach me that you need a Kohen. So you need 5 Kohanim. And every even number 1, 2, 4, 6, and 8, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 are mi'ut achar mi'ut and can be anyone. And so that would be 5 Yisraelim. So he says, well, I think you should read it like that. And that's a challenge that we leave standing against Shemuel. V'adam kayozeh bahen. Adam mikadosh. So the next item on the list in the Mishnah is a human being, and it says a human being has the same law as land, that you need 10 judges, including one kohen, to evaluate the person if someone donates their own worth. We ask about that. Can a person be consecrated? All right, generally, if you say irki alai, so that means his fixed evaluation. Then you just look at the age and gender. This one's 50, this one's 30 shekel. So what are you talking about? A person's body does not actually become sanctified like an item or an animal can become sanctified, that then you'd have to redeem it. What kind of evaluation do you need? Why would you need 10 judges? Amar Rabbi Abu be'omer damai alai. Rabbi Abu says this part of the Mishnah is not talking about arachin, but talking about a regular consecration. You can consecrate anything, and you say, my valuation is upon me, my market value. Detanya ha'omer damai alai shamin oto ke'abed adimkar b'shuk ve'ebed itakash lekarkaot. The Braita says, if someone says, as opposed to irki alai, if he says damai alai, my market value is upon me, then we make an evaluation of how much would this person be sold on the slave market. In Roman times, they had lots of slave markets, and then you'd see if he's strong, if he's tall, how old, and so on. And we know that the slaves are similar to land for many, many laws, and so therefore, just like land requires 10 people to make an evaluation, so to a slave, so too a person who says, my market value, I am donating. Now, a related question: if you have hair that is ready to be shorn, a person is ready for a haircut, he's about to get a haircut, it's nearly cut, but right now it's not cut, how would you evaluate it? Do we say, since he's about to get a haircut, he's ready for a haircut, is long enough, and since it's about to be cut, we consider it as if it's already cut. And if it's cut, then it's a movable item. If it's a movable item, then it's evaluated by 3. Or do we say, since it's attached to a person is like land. We just said that. And since this is part of a person, so therefore it's like land. It's like an attached thing. And you need 10 judges. A person might have very nice hair. He's donating his hair for whatever. So that's the question. Tashema hamakdishit abdo en mo'alin bo. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel omer mo'alin bis'aro. We actually have an answer that is subject to a machloket, as it says in the following Baraita. If someone consecrates his slave, then there's no me'ilah on the slave. There's a law regarding me'ilah. If you take something that's consecrated and use it for yourself, that only applies to movable items, not to land. If I donate land and then I go and use the land, I don't violate officially me'ilah. And so too regarding a slave, if I consecrate a slave and then make him do some work, I don't violate me'ilah. That's Tanakama. Rashbag, however, says that I would violate me'ilah if I use the slave's hair. And when we discussed this Braita, we said that it's talking about hair that is ready to be cut. And so we see that hair ready to be cut is the subject to subject to machloket between these two Tanaim. The Tanakama says that the hair is part of the body, and therefore the slave himself is like land. There's no me'ilah on the slave's body. There's no me'ilah on the slave's hair either. And even though it's ready to be cut, it's still considered part of the slave's body. Whereas Rashbag says, the body is no me'ilah for, because body is like land, but the hair, since it's about to be cut, we consider it as if it's already cut. It's a movable item, and therefore you can have me'ilah on that. Now these two Tanaim, Tanakama and Rashbag, seem to be parallel to the two Tanaim in the following Mishnah from Masechet Shavuot. Ditnan Rabbi Meir Omer, Yesh Devarim Shem Kekarka ve'enan kekarka ve'en chachamim modim lo. Rabbi Meir says there are some things that are like land in one way and not like land in another way. But Chachamim disagree with the Rabbi Meir about that. What are they talking about? Kesad. Ayased gefanim te'unot masarti lecha v'hala omed enan ela chamesh. If I say, I gave you 10 vines and I want you to pay me for them, and then you say, no, you only gave me 5. So now this is called modeh b'miksat, right? You're agreeing that you owe me 5, but you are objecting to the other 5. generally, when you say modeh b'miksat, if it's movable items, then you have to swear. You have to swear that I don't owe you the other 5, I only owe you 5. That's the law of modeh b'miksat, triggers a vow. So, but these are vines. So, would we say modeh miksat here? Yes or no? Rabbi Meir mechayev. Rabbi Meir says yes, even though they are they are connected to the ground. In that sense, they are like things connected to the ground. On the other hand, they're a little different. They're not like things connected to the ground. In that, you have to make a vow like a movable item. So Rabbi Meir says it's like a movable item. But Chachamim omedim kol mechubad lakarka harehu kerkarka. Chachamim say, no, if it's attached to the ground, then it's part of the ground. And there's no modeh b'miksat vow in this case. Rabbi Meir would say, since they're vines, I guess, vines are different because they could grow very long. And we're about to explain what the case is that they're talking about. V'amar Rabbi Yosef we're talking about grapes that are ready to be picked, right? They're all ripe and ready. So what do we say is their status? Mor sabar kibesurot damyan, or mor sabar lav kibesurot damyan. Rabbi Meir says it's as if they are already picked, even though, yes, technically they're connected to the ground, but since they're ripe and ready to be picked, we consider them as if they're already picked, and that's why we consider them like movable items. And that's what he meant over here when he says there are things that are like land. They're like land in that it's physically connected to the ground, but they're also not like land. Since it's ready to be picked, we consider it as if it's already picked. And the law of a vow, but the miksat does apply to them. Whereas Banan over here say that even though they're ready to be picked, they're not considered movable items. They are considered connected to the ground. And once we understand that, now we can match them up and say that Rabbi Meir matches up with Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel before said, since this hair is ready to be cut, it's as if it's already cut, considered movable item. Here, Rabbi Meir says these grapes are ready to be cut, so it's as if they're already cut. Whereas the Chachamim in both cases would agree with each other that something that is physically connected, the hair connected to the body of the person, or the grapes connected to the ground, even though they're ready to be cut, doesn't matter. They are considered part of the ground or part of the body of the slave. So should we match these up? And we answer no, not necessarily. La afilu tema Rabbi Meir. Ad kan la ka'amar Rabbi Meir hatam. Kol kama deshabka lehu michash kahashe. Aval se'aro kol kama deshabka lehu ashpuche mashbach. Rabbi Meir only said regarding grapes that if they're ready to be cut, they're considered already cut, because the longer you leave them, the more lean they will become. You don't want to leave the grapes on there. Now that they're ready, they're nice and plump and ripe. So so it's best to pick them now. Otherwise, they're actually just going to get worse. That's why he says, since they're ready to be picked, they're considered already picked. But hair, if you leave it longer, if you leave it and don't cut it, it'll get longer, and the value will be even greater. And therefore, Rabbi Meir would not necessarily agree that the law of grapes applies to hair. Grapes, I got to pick them, otherwise they're going to get bad. Whereas hair, well, yes, he's ready to get a haircut, but if you leave it, then it'll continue to grow and be even more expensive. So Rabbi Meir may say that regarding hair, just because it's ready to be cut does not make it a movable item. And so we are not necessarily going to line up the opinions in these two sources. We now go on to the next item in the Mishnah that says Dinei Nefashot. Let's look at it inside the Mishnah. Dinei Nefashot be'asrim ush lo sha, capital punishment, you need 23 judges. And furthermore, harobeya v'hanirba be'asrim ush lo sha, if a person is with an animal, commits bestiality, whether he is the actor or the receiver. And we know that the animal and the person are both judged with the death penalty, and both of them require 23 judges. How do you know that? Because there's two pesukim, one, v'arakta isha v'eta behema, and v'eta behema taharogu. So you see, it's just opposing the killing of the person who's involved with the animal, and therefore, just like the person requires 23 judges, as in all capital cases, so too the animal itself has to be judged in front of 23 judges. So the Gemara comments, Dinei nefashot, kapasik v'tani, la shena robeya zachar, v'la shena robeya nekeba. The Mishnah just says, in general, anyone who commits bestiality. And therefore, it does not matter whether an animal is with a male or a female, a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. Both get the same death penalty. So we understand if an animal is with a woman, then we have a clear source, because the pasuk says you kill the woman and the animal. How do you know regarding an ox that commits a sin with a man? What's the source for that? Well, we have a pasuk, tichtiv kol shocheb im behema mot yumat im eno inyan lashocheb teneo inyan lanishkab. Pasuk says anyone who lies with an animal shall die. So if this is not referring to a man who is the active partner with an animal, why would it not be talking about that? Well, because there's actually yet another pasuk that is not quoted here. This is pasuk in Vayikra that says, "V'isha sheriten shechobto b'behema mot yumat v'ete behema taharogu." So from this pasuk we know that if the man is the active partner, then he gets the death penalty. So this one, this pasuk is ambiguous. It's just shochev. So if this is not talking about when the man is active, then it must be talking about a case where the man is the passive partner, and so that's the source. And this pasuk here uses the word to lie together, which is usually like a nice euphemism for two human beings lying with one lying with the other. Why is it using this? For an animal, which is an unusual usage, right? You might expect something like this, lidib'a ota. That would be the more common a verb to use for bestiality. And the answer is it's using this so that you can learn the following derasha. Just like if the man is the active partner, then he is killed and the animal is killed, and they both need 23 judges. That's what we learned from the Pasuk 15. That we just saw. Nishkab, so too, if the man is the passive partner, still, he and the animal get the death penalty and have to be judged by 23 judges. Shora niskal be-23 ushlosha. Let's look at the Mishnah inside. Shora niskal be-23 ushlosha. Shneimar, hashor yisakel v'gam be'alav yumat ki mitat be'alim kach mitat hashor. If an ox gores someone, we're talking about a shor mu'ad, then the pasuk says the ox gets stoned to death, and also the owner will die. Because it's a shor mu'ad, the owner should have been watching it more carefully. And so you see that it links together the death penalty against the animal and the owner. And the Mishnah learns from a derasha based on this juxtaposition that just like the owner is killed in front of 23 judges, so too the ox is killed in front of 23 judges. So we're going to analyze this. Just 1 second, look at the pasuk, because don't think that we actually have to kill the owner. The next pasuk says, "Im kofir yushat alav." If he wants to redeem his life with a sum of money, then he can do v'natan pidyon nafsho kechol asher yushat alav. So even though it says technically the owner deserves a death penalty because his animal killed someone, but he can get out of death penalty by paying a certain amount. Okay, now back to the Gemara. Shorin nizkar be-23 shneimar, hashor yisakel v'gam be'alav yumat ki mitat ha'be'alim kach mitat hashor. Amar le'Abaye le'Rava, mimai dehai v'gam be'alav yumat lechmitat be'alim kach mitat hashor hu de'ata. So now that we quote the Mishnah, Abaye asks Rava, how do you know that these words, that the owner should also die, is teaching me what the Mishnah says is teaching, which is that just like regarding the owner, you need 23 judges, so too the ox has to be killed in front of 23 judges. Maybe it needs to teach us that the owner gets the death penalty at all. How would I know that? So the answer is, Im ken lichtob v'gam be'alav v'lishtok. Rava says, no, if it just wanted to teach us that the owner gets the death penalty, but not trying to compare them or anything, then it would have just said, v'gam be'alav, right? As go back to the pasuk, hashor yisakel v'gam be'alav. Then I would know that that the owner gets the death penalty. The extra word, yumat, is teaching me that just like the owner needs 23 judges, so too the animal requires 23 judges. But Abaye presses on his question. No, if the pasuk says when the pasuk says this, that's how I know that the owner gets sikila v'gam be'alav yumat. So I need the pasuk to tell me that, right? If it just said gam be'alav, I would have known just the death penalty. By adding yumat, now I know that v'gam be'alav yumat, that the owner dies in the same way as the animal, and the owner gets the death penalty too. So I need v'gam be'alav yumat to teach me that the owner gets the death penalty, and I cannot use it for what the Mishnah teaches, that the animal also requires 23 judges. That's Abaye's question. And so we answer to that, Biskila sakadatech katalio besayif mamono biskila. Wait, do you think that an owner of an animal that kills is going to get stoned? Stoning is the worst level of worst capital punishment. It goes in order that we say in the prayers. Sikila, sirefa, hereg vachenek. So sikila is the worst. That doesn't make sense, because if a person himself kills with his own hand, then he gets killed by sword. Sikila, sirefa, hereg. That's hereg, which is the third level, not the worst one. The third, sikila being the worst, so this is the third. So mamono, if his animal kills someone, then he's going to get a worse death penalty when his animal kills than if he kills himself. No, that doesn't make sense. So therefore, nobody would think that the word be'alav is coming to teach you that the owner gets stoned just like the animal gets stoned. Rather, the drasha of the Mishnah is good. The word be'alav is teaching us that the animal requires 23 judges. The Gemara asks further, wait, maybe we need the word yumat to teach me that we should be more lenient to the owner of the animal that kills. So normally if a person kills himself, he would get a headache. But if it's only his animal kills, then it should go to the lowest level, the best form of capital punishment, which is chenek, strangulation. Maybe that's what yumat is teaching me. So we answer, there is actually a machloket whether hedek and chenek, which order it goes in. So if you say that chenek is a worse capital punishment than hereg, then you would have no problem. You could answer this question because then if a person kills himself, he gets the lightest form of capital punishment, which is already hereg, and therefore the word yumat would not teach me anything. Wouldn't teach me to be more lenient because he's already getting the most lenient one. If you think that chenek is more chamur than hereg, and so then I would have no problem, and the Mishnah is all understandable. But according to the order that we have in our prayers, sikila serefa hereg v'cheneg, so hereg v'chenek, chenek is the most lenient form, then indeed this really is a tough question, because I know that a person who kills himself would get the second worst type of capital punishment of hereg, and maybe the word yumat is coming to tell me that, since it's only your animal that did it, so you get the lightest form of capital punishment, and it goes down to chenek. And now I wouldn't know the derasha that the Mishnah teaches, and so this is a real problem. How do I back up the Mishnah's derasha that be'alav is teaching me that the animal needs 23 judges? And the answer is no, don't think that the owner actually gets the death penalty at all, because the next pasuk says that if you want to have a ransom, then you pay a certain amount and you redeem the life of the owner of the animal. So we're not killing him no matter what. So therefore the word yumat certainly is not coming to tell me that you're going to give him this type of death penalty or that type of death penalty. He's not going to be killed at all. So therefore the Rasha of the Mishnah is fine. If you would think that the owner of the animal is actually killed, we have another pasuk that says you can never take ransom for the life of a murderer. If someone actually murders someone else physically, then no matter how much he's willing to pay, $1 billion, no, this is a crime, and he has to get the death penalty penalty no matter what. But here you see that he's paying ransom, which means he wasn't really deserving of capital punishment to begin with. And so now the derasha is fine. Yumat is not there to tell me a type of capital punishment. He's not getting capital punishment. We reject this. Adrabah mishum hi gufa katalihu la tiske le b'mamona ela biktala katal shoro liftok nafshe b'mamona. No, maybe that's the whole point of this pasuk. Im kofer yushat alav. It's actually teaching us that this pasuk that says lo tiku kofer, that's if he kills someone himself, then he cannot get away with paying. Rather, you have to give him capital punishment. But if someone's animal kills, that's a different story altogether, and he can extract himself by paying money. So it could very well be that he really will get the death penalty unless he pays. Let's say a guy says, "No, I don't want to pay. I'd rather not pay to save my life." Then we really would kill him, and there's no contradiction because this pasuk lo tichu kofer is talking about when he kills himself and not through his animal. When he kills through his animal, he does get the death penalty, but he can save himself and pay a ransom. El amar Chizkiya v'chen tana debe Chizkiya amar kera mot yumat tamake roseyachu al resichato atahorgo v'atahorgo al resichat shoro. Rather, Chizkiya says, I learned this from a different pasuk that says that the person who murders will be killed. That means if someone murders himself, then you have to kill him. But if it's his animal that kills someone, then you do not actually give him capital punishment. So from here, we learn that when someone's animal kills, although it says gam be'alav yumat, it doesn't literally mean that we kill him. It just means he is deserving of to give his life. He's deserving of the death penalty in a sense, but he's always going to pay, and we're not going to actually kill him. And since we're not going to actually kill him because this pasuk here distinguishes between the two, therefore the word yumat is teaching me that the animal needs 23 judges in order to be judged for capital punishment. Now, last question of this section. On Har Sinai, the Torah says no person and no animal can come and up the mountain, up Har Sinai, or else it will die. Now, you might read that pasuk to mean that as if it goes up the mountain, then it just gets zapped because it's so holy, right? Just like lightning comes down and will kill it. But that's not how we're understanding. We're understanding it as a commandment. It's not allowed to go and touch it. If it touches it, it will live. But then you're going to take it and bring it to court and judge it. So that's the question. An ox that goes and touches Har Sinai at the time during Matan Torah, do we learn it from the law for generations that requires 23 judges, or is this a unique law and it doesn't require 23 judges? Tashema detanedami bar Yechezkel im behema im ish lo yichye ma ish be'esrim u'shlosha behema be'esrim u'shlosha. The pasuk puts humans and animals together, and it says whether it's an animal or whether it's a human being that goes and touches Har Sinai, it will not live. So you're juxtaposing them to teach that they're the same thing. Just like regarding human being, same thing for a human being. If a human being would go and start walking up Har Sinai, they wouldn't necessarily just get zapped by some lightning, but rather they'd catch him and arrest him and bring him to court of 23. So too, we learn an animal also 23. So the answer is that we learn the law of Har Sinai from the law of generations, and it always requires 23 judges. Next part of Mishnah teaches Ha'ari v'Haze'ev. Let's look at that part of the Mishnah inside. Teaches Haze'ev v'Ha'ari v'Hadov v'Hanamer v'Arbadas v'Nachash mitatan be'esrim u'shelosha. Rabbi Eliezer omer kol kodem lehorgan zachar. Rabbi Akiva omer mitatan be'esrim u'shelosha. Regarding a wolf, lion, bear, leopard, cheetah, or snake, we're assuming that it means that killed a person. We'll see what the Gemara says about that. Then you bring them to court, and they are judged in front of 23. So according to Tanakama, all these, even though these are wild animals, we're treating them similar to the way we would treat an ox. There's no difference between tam and mu'ad in that sense. But if they kill, then they are killed, but only if they kill. If you just see a wild lion or wolf and it didn't kill anybody, then maybe you can't do anything. We'll see how the Gemara interprets that. Rabbi Eliezer, however, says you don't have to bring them to court. You don't need 23 judges. If you see it and you can kill it, go for it. You get merit. You save people from danger. And Rabbi Akiva says you have to kill them in front of 23 judges, which sounds the same as the Tanakama. What's the difference between them? The Gemara will address. Okay. Resh Lakish interprets the Mishnah as we just did, that you can only kill a lion and a wolf and so on if they killed a person. But if they did not kill a person, then leave them alone. They didn't do anything. So we see that according to Resh Lakish, all these animals have culture, meaning that that's possible to domesticate them and that they have owners. And so someone owns this lion and you can't just go and kill it and it didn't do anything wrong. You have to wait till it does something wrong. You can't just judge it for nothing. That would be Resh Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Af al pi shelo hemitu, alma kasabar, en lahem tarbut ve'en lahem be'alim. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, you don't need any cause. Even if they didn't kill anyone, you do have to bring them to court, though. And the court will say, let's see, this lion seems to be, is it dangerous or is it not dangerous? Where is it? What is it doing? And so on. And if they decide to kill it, then they will kill it. But even if it didn't kill anyone, they can still decide to do so. And so we see, according to Rabbi Yochanan, that these animals are wild. They have no culture. They're not domesticated. They do not have owners. And they cannot be tamed. And therefore, if the court decides to kill them, they can do so, even if it didn't even if the animal did not kill a person. Tenan Rabbi Eliezer Omer kol hakodem l'horgan zacha bishlama Rabbi Yochanan lemay zacha leoran ela l'Resh Lakish lemay zacha kevan shehemitu shavinu Rabbanan keman degamar dinayhu ve'isure hanaa ninhu. Now, in the continuation of Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer says you don't need a court. Rather, whoever goes and kills them, he merits what? Let's see, according to both opinions. According to Rabbi Yochanan, this makes sense. Rabbi Yochanan says that the animal didn't do anything wrong, and so now you're just going to go and kill him. That's fine. Saving people from danger. So what do you merit? You merit to take the hide. Since it's ownerless, that's what Rabbi Yochanan says. These are not domesticated, they are ownerless. So if you see a bear and you can kill the bear, then you can keep the hide because it's hefker. But according to Resh Lakish, what are you meriting? What are you getting? Since you can only kill the bear if the bear killed someone and you brought it to court, and according to the Rabbi Eliezer, you don't have to bring it to court. But it's the same thing. The machloket between the Tanakama and the Rabbi Eliezer is only regarding a bear that killed someone. If the bear killed someone, according to Tanakama, you need 23 judges. According to Rabbi Eliezer, you don't need 23 judges. You can kill it yourself. But the problem is that since you can only kill it if it's a killer bear, then you're making it like a verdict that has been issued in court. Whether or not you need 23 judges or you could just kill it, it's a guilty bear. And any guilty animal that has been decided by a verdict that it deserves the death penalty, you cannot get any benefit from it. Like before, a shor haniskal, if an ox does something that deserves the death penalty, you can't get any benefit, not from its meat, not from its hide, not from anything. And so that's the question, according to Resh Lakish, who says that you can only kill a guilty animal, then what does it mean merit? You can't take the hide because you can't benefit from a guilty animal. So, my zacha l'shamayim, and the answer is he merits merit from heaven that he killed this guilty animal that killed someone. Tanya kivatet Resh Lakish echad shor shemit v'echad behema v'chaya shemitu b'23. Rabbi Eliezer omer shor shemit b'23 ushar behema v'chaya shemitu kol hakodem l'organ zacha behen l'shamayim. We have a braita that supports the reading of Resh Lakish in two ways, both at the beginning and at the end. It says whether it's an ox that killed someone or a domesticated or a wild animal that killed, you need 23 judges. You see that it's only if the animal kills someone, then it can be brought to court to be killed. But if it didn't do anything, then no, it maybe it has an owner, maybe it's domesticated. And Rabbi Eliezer says an animal that killed requires 23 judges. That's for a shor. That's the law we learned before, where we saw the juxtaposition. So we learned an ox that killed, yes, that has to be brought to court. Everyone agrees that we already talked about that. But other animals, whether domesticated or wild animals that kill someone, anyone who wants to go and kill them can. And he gets merit from heaven. So we see this, that the answer we just said, merit from heaven, that is that which we answered according to the Shakish, that's in the Braita also. So that also supports Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. So you see that even Rabbi Eliezer says, okay, you don't have to bring it to court, but still has to be a guilty one and has to have killed in order for someone to go out and have the right to go and kill it. Lastly, Rabbi Akiva Omer, Rabbi Akiva says you need 23 judges. Well, that's the same as Tanakama, Rabbi Akiva Hainu Tanakama, and the answer is Ika Benaihu Nachash. The difference between them is a snake. According to Tanakama, a snake also has to be judged by 23 judges, where according to Rabbi Akiva, yes, all animals, domesticated, undomesticated, require 23 judges, but not a snake. A snake, those are really, really dangerous, and a snake you can just kill alone without having to bring it in front of 23 judges. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.